having a vision, it's seeing. It's like as far as you can see. And as far as you can see is not far enough. Okay, this because I can see it. To imagine something is to imagine something that I cannot see. So basically, the way to look at this is how can you imagine and believe in the possibility of future change? So literally, is it even possible that such a future occurrence will happen in your mind? You really believe that it's possible? And that thing, is it not defined by existing limitations?
Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Živile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Perception Paradox. Today, one more inspiring episode straight from TechChill 2025 that happened in Riga in February, where a lot of people from the Baltics, Nordics, and all over the world gathers together to talk about startups, innovation, entrepreneurship, investments, you name it. So today I have my guest, Yoad Mick, who is all about the imagination, a firm believer that we can change our mindset. How can we actually perhaps shift it? And what does it have to do with our imagination as adults? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to meet you and see your work. And it's amazing, and I'm happy to cover it.
Oh, I'm glad that you joined. So how are you today? We're recording it on the day one of TechChill. Or yesterday was day zero, already quite intense. How was it so far for you?
Amazing. It's amazing to see that as the years go and as I progress into what I do, it taps into people's open-mindedness, and I discover more curiosity among people to understand that there is more than just one opportunity to understand how to do the startup and entrepreneurial journey. I also discovered that they understand that it's not just about the product. There's actually the whole timing, and the team is so important, and the stress on the team, and to understand how to then harness the team with you around your idea, and how to bring the emotional side into play, and the servant leadership side, and how big a part that actually plays, and how much your product is then a means to an end rather than the product centricness that was always dominant. So I'm glad to see that it develops.
Nice. Okay, your career itself, it's also not very linear. You've been advertising, marketing, growth, and acting, army, and all the different things. And now imagination. So can you tell us more a bit about your non-linear pathway and how did curiosity led where you are?
Yeah, it is perhaps an unusual journey, but I see all the connecting points looking back on it. Far forward, I didn't know how to do this. And as the classic Steve Jobs quote says, only backwards I can tie it to see what my points I'll create. So, but yeah, I think I did spend time in the army, in combat as an officer, many years on that, and then also as an actor and studied psychology, and then also in advertising for such companies as such, learning a lot about brand, and then jumping to the other side of the table, becoming a CMO of iGaming. I'm really discovering what it is to build a department, to use B2C to raise B2B, and so on. I think looking back on all this, I faced this, let's call it a golden cage scenario, where technically you're on the path, technically you're doing what you're doing, you're being appreciated for it, paid for it, but there's something missing. There's a gap between the ideal self that you think and the impact that you should create and the actual self of where you are. And technically everyone around you in society and expectations, you meet everything, but then you feel that your authenticity perhaps is lacking, even looking back on this. So I think at that point, as I say sometimes, it's some kind of a midlife crisis, but I hope it's not my midlife because that's a pretty quick death. But it's more than to understand reverse engineering and saying, asking what am I passionate about? What has always led me? What has always driven me? And that's why I'm saying, tying it back, what has always been very present in every single one. And I discovered that ever since when I was a kid, imagination was a huge part of my life. To imagine things, if it's play, if it's imagining scenarios in the future, imagining what I want to be, imagining what I want to achieve, and really, really much believing in that. And that actually created that entire world around me. And then also I saw how it came out in the army, how it helped me become a better leader and harness the team together, and then understand that I made them feel the ownership and the brotherhood and all that. And then understanding how with the advertising. It helped me then understand how to pitch to the clients, the campaign, to understand that I have to create a collective imagination with them to lower the resistance and so on. That's another thing. So how to imagine with them what the future is. And with that, actually lower the resistance, and they're able to then listen to the campaign that we want to bring, and then all the way to harnessing a department and then creating ownership among everyone and making them feel seen, heard, and psychologically safe, and also develop this trust among us. And that allowed me as a CMO to step out from being a micromanager to dealing with team to strategy and not dealing with the specifics of the team, and then allowing me to break down walls between departments because we all imagine together what the brand is, and all the way to taking a vacation and knowing that my department will continue to go according to something that's not my direction, but is the brand, and creating it, what does it mean, and so on. So they literally owned the brand, just like all the way back to the army, they owned the mission. So I see a direct
correlation
between,
yeah.
exactly.
100%. That's so interesting. So all the change we do, or like all your career, new pathways you form that are interconnected, well, it does require some steps. It does require some change, right? And when it comes to change, I think one of the first things our brains are signaling are, okay, so if I want to change, I need to build the discipline, I need to set the goals, and then I will just start working towards that. And that's gonna happen. Let's say what they're saying. There was this research, 28 days to change your mind by following 2030. So how is it really from your perspective, and what does it really take to make a change? Where does it start? Does it start on the sheet of paper? Does it start in our head? Or
That's a beautiful question, because I think you touched exactly on the point where we that is the essence of everything that we want to create, of every dissonance we have between what, as Carl Rogers used to say this in the social psychology aspect, the ideal self that we want to be and the actual self that we are, and the incongruence between those two is what your frustration really is. So the whole idea is because you're comfortable in your uncomfort zone, and I call this an uncomfort zone because if would you be comfortable in your comfort zone, then you wouldn't, then everything would be bliss and you wouldn't have any anxiety, frustration, or anything. But you want to be out of your comfort zone and in the place of change. But that's exactly where change exists out of your comfort zone. It's uncertain, it's unknown, it's scary, and then we've been primed subconsciously to understand that anything that puts us different than the rest will actually endanger us, right? We'll be cast aside from the tribe, not loved, not accepted, not whatever. And yet today we're sort of demanded to always be something that we're currently not. And that dissonance creates, again, that anxiety and that stress. So to change things is, so I always say in the workshops that I do, that we have to change our relationship with change. Change currently is seen as something aversive, something that you may logically want, but subconsciously and in your body, it's like, I don't want to do this, right? So I think about it, but then I sometimes ask in the workshops and training, I said, okay, how many, first of all, I tell you things that you already know. Okay, but we're all smart people and we can play with it all. But how many of you know at least 3 things that you know that you should do, you should change, you should act like, but you don't? Like constantly no. And then everybody, of course, could think of 3 things that they should do: be nicer, eat this, start diet, go to the gym, whatever, right? So logically, you understand completely all the rational reasoning why you should do something, but at the same time, say what? So what are you, self-destructive? What are you, you're trying to do to go against yourself, to hurt yourself? What's the reason? So there is this huge emotional aspect that has to do, which there actually is a resistance of our blocks, and that really exists in our subconscious. Your body reacts in a certain way, you pull yourself back. And you mentioned the 21-day challenges or the 30-day challenges. It is exactly that process of change, because you have to then do something that your body and your mind will resist. And the first day and the second day, the first day you'll be fine. The second day, you already know what you went into, so they'll go, oh, okay. So let's say go into the gym, you're all pumped up going. The next day is going to hurt, and it's like, do you really want to go to the? I don't know. The third day you'll make an excuse. Your body starts hurting, so on and so on. By the 21 days, your subconscious will be convinced that this is not a threat, that you won't be cast aside. So it's because if you repeat it so many times and you still get the gratification afterwards, and you still chose to overcome the resistance of doing it again and went over it, and you survived and going it over. So after 21 times, it goes, you know what? Screw it. You want to keep this behavior? Go ahead. You're safe. You're not going to die. I obviously understand that. And then you develop a behavior that is fine. So you accepted the change, right? And that becomes the new norm. That becomes the behavior that you do.
okay.
So that's a simple way of looking at it. But then like to bring it all the way to startups, perhaps, and businesses, it was interesting for me that I think I told you this when we talked before, that I was hosting and working with Blendstrom Group, was a huge company,
Yeah.
right? Last week. So they had this growth forum, and this growth forum, they brought 20 countries came in, 100 executives, this big thing. And the CEO presented their 2x by 2030. And mind you, this is like a billion-dollar company, so to multiply it is crazy. The aspiration to do this is amazing, but what it means de facto to the rest of the company, while the board and the CEOs are happy with this, that means I'm gonna have to work to create the 2x changes, more work, new ways of doing things, new strategies, stress, anxiety. Somebody's gonna be fired. Somebody's gonna change how to do, right? There's so much change, so there's an immediate aversive reaction to this. Like, and they did this in a really smart way. And working with them on reimagining this is basically the entire first day was dedicated to building psychological safety between all the executives to lower the resistance, and then forming trust, which psychological safety is a prerequisite to creating the trust. And only after doing that, everybody understood that they're imagining together that future, and everybody's bringing the ideas, and nobody's threatening anybody, and so on, so on, so on. Only the second day was dedicated to the actual strategy. So it had to be built. There has to be a state of flow. So I bring this because I'm looking at that CEO, but he was talking about happy, communicative executives that will be able to then communicate to the teams and harness them, collectively imagine with them that vision and what it means and how to look at the growth opportunity of this and not just the threat of it. So literally understanding that it's easy to say this is the number we want to do, but there are people who have to do this. And so it comes back to the last point that a KPI, it's a key performance indicator. But to me, as always, I ask who the performance is done by. And that is P is people, right?
Yeah.
People create that. And then I understood that my methodology in all the years has been, without even knowing, to bypass people's resistances by harnessing what's most precious to them, which is their imagination, which is their ability to their own inner world, whatever that includes. So if I keep people imagining and make them feel psychologically safe and trust that they can bring me their imagination, then they will bring the ownership that they have, and then the creativity and the innovation and the dedication and the retention, everything that will come with me to create something that demands a lot of change. But they will come willingly because they are part of it and they own that change. So that's sort of to change the relationship with change, what it means.
But when it comes to imagination, would you consider what's the difference between imagination and visualization? Because for me, it sounds pretty similar, right? That we have something, imagine, visualize in our heads. Is it the same, or it kind of has different?
That's also that's a beautiful thing, because people assume like imagination. You didn't have that question back when you were a kid, because imagination encompassed, I use an example that I'll go back to, but it encompassed so many different things. It encompassed visual, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what it reminds you of. So there was an entire thing to it, right? There was your experiences and your emotions, and even just these crazy ideas, let's call it a soul, that they just come to you, and you just accepted it as part of that bundle. But in today's world, when you pass through the education system, they told you that imagination is for kids and creativity is hail supreme, and this is right and wrong and black and white and yes and no and supposed to and not supposed to and status quo and not status quo and so on and so on. And your teacher told you this and that grandma told you that and the family and so on. Expectations and whatnot, society you grew up in. You basically, they blocked off all that path, and then they left you what is convenient. So then the imagination stayed with the sort of the initial idea of what you want, what shape of the clouds in, it looks like this, things like that. So we really cut down the meaning of the deep, true meaning of imagination, of which you didn't think about it as a kid. So to your question, you can also look at this, as Simon Sinek talks about this. I think that he says that visualization is, or having a vision to the company is like it says, it's seeing. It's like as far as you can see. As far as you can see is not far enough. Okay, this because I can see it. To imagine something is to imagine something that I cannot see. So basically, the way to look at this is, how can you imagine and believe in the possibility of future change? So literally, is it even possible that such a future occurrence will happen in your mind? You really believe that it's possible? And that thing, is it not defined by existing limitations? So to imagine and believe in a future change that is not defined by the existing limitations that we have at the moment. So basically, to innovate, to not say, yes, I'm building on what is happening today, but I'm looking at a place where I have achieved this impact, right? This change that I want to create. And only when you truly believe in it can you then. Because the beautiful thing, and this Proctor talks about imagination in that sense. Says that your conscious mind impacts your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is tied to your body. And this is psychology, this is known.
Yeah.
But what he says is that the conscious mind, and Freud says it, Jung says it, and so on, cannot differentiate between what is imagined and believed and what is real and believed. And both, and you can think of yourself whenever you think of something that stresses you out in the future. Somebody doesn't answer the phone, there's an accident, he doesn't answer, right? Our body immediately reacts. They will not like me, they will not accept this. Everything that's in the future that you're imagining, and then it directly impacts your body and you feel it in your body. So there's a clear connection between those two. So it can happen for the positive, it can happen for the negative as well. So basically, it's a beautiful thing because what it means is that if you imagine and believe it's something, you will actually impact your body, which is beautiful. So you can actually bypass resistances the same way that you can allow them to impact you negatively. You can actually bypass them. And the same thing is, okay, one last thing that we'll jump is about, because I spent a lot of time in the army, they told me, okay, so you probably developed a lot of courage, so you don't fear anymore. And I said, that is the biggest bullshit, because fear, the only reason that courage exists is because of fear. If fear wasn't there, there would be no reason for courage. So, and plus, if you don't fear, then, well, that's a very bad thing to do, because you can't really understand what the dangers are ahead, and you don't know why you need to be more courageous. So the bigger the challenges, the bigger the risk, the bigger the unknown, the bigger the uncertain, the more fear is created. But the way that you train to look at proof points in your life, you have actually had this experience of fear, but you were able to overcome it. And that is the byproduct that forms courage.
Yeah, but so how do we overcome then those self-limiting beliefs? Because, okay, let's take personal life, right? We start making the change, like see how many people hits the gym every January. And literally just had the episode with Dan Tyre about the goal setting, right? How you set your goals for upcoming year. But we clearly see in our environment so many people failing to stick to their goals and to make that change. Maybe January, yes, full of people in the gym. Now we have a new wave in spring that people really setting their goals. But how do we actually keep the change happening and continuing that through? Because it is pretty difficult to change the beliefs we have in our mind.
You're absolutely right. So,
and we come back, we go to all the environment, it pulls us back. Is it possible fully to remove the triggers?
So I think it's very interesting because of three, maybe 2 points, and then to specifically answer that. To understand it, first of all, you have to understand, and I have to understand, and over the years, what does it mean to set a goal? And what does it mean to set a goal about the future? So one thing, you're not an oracle, unless you are.
You never know.
We have a different conversation, not a lot of numbers and so on. But since most of us are not oracles and we don't know what the future is going to be, we try to, like you said before, visualize a specific event and how it's going to be. And that creates, and this Huberman lab talks a lot about this creates, even scientifically, it creates a certain chemical connection of dopamine, right? So you try to specifically understand how that's going to be, what's going to look like this, go like this, I'm going to go like this, very, very specific, right? And they told you always be very specific. What happens is then you reach it, and it's not exactly the same thing, right? It's because you didn't predict exactly what it would look like, right? So then you had a high dopamine expectancy, and then what you received is a sort of middle. So now there's a gap, but not to your favor, right? So then you don't have any gratification to do this again. So that teaches you to lower that behavior, because obviously that's not good for you. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, like, to understand that we're not oracles. I mean, think of yourself, by the way. Have you ever imagined a certain future? It's going to be exactly like that. You achieve that. When you achieve this business goal, you'll feel like happy and wonderful and and then you actually arrived at that point and didn't really feel that way, or it was kind of just.
I guess it depends with all this visualization. What you're saying, I have really good stories and real deals where it was really successful, but that was very specific. So when it comes to a big vision, I think it's not applicable. But when it comes to a very specific athletic performance or some kind of exam or some kind of overall, like my stage performance. So I do visualize a lot, actually, how I'm gonna behave, how I'm gonna move, how do I want to feel, what kind of energy I want to bring. So that really helps me. But
it's interesting because it works two ways. So it's beautiful what you're saying, because sometimes we expect something and then we get something better. That's a success story, because you say, "Wow, I never even knew this is possible." So now you uphold this as this is the right way to do this. But what if it works the other way around? And what if something fucks up? Or what if it's suddenly the mic doesn't work, or things like that, or it throws you off? So if you have a certain path, how are you able to improvise, to
Perhaps,
pivot,
but
to iterate?
does that really connect them with visualization? I think it connects with how proactive and reactive you are to the environment and the change, right? So if something happens not according to the plan, but at the end of the day, I still want to have the same outcome from my event, right? So I know the emotion I want to have about that, right? I know it's the mind kind of connection I want to create. And which direction I'm going to choose doesn't matter, but I really know how it has to feel.
That is the point. You just said that exactly. So you, on the one hand, it's beautiful what you said, because you said on the one hand visualization, and then you describe an entire emotional state that you want to reach. So you basically, that's my next point. Visualization is great, but you can't match, because things will not match one exactly on the other. So that's a room for you leave a high percentage of disappointment opportunity right there. And when you focus on exactly what you said, the way for me to understand what's the mission, what's the imagined future that I want. I want to create this feeling, that thing, that thing. And now you've done this in the past. You've experienced this feeling, and this is so now walking into the unknown, unfuture, and setting that. What I imagine you can, the best thing you can do is use this, what you just mentioned, as a compass. I want to create this feeling. I know I can. I've done it before. I wanted it. So everything I do, I aspire to do this. So every change I make, every unexpected opportunity that comes along, it's always to do that, to bring that to light. And this is why even when I go on stage or workshops or anything like that, every time, and you'll notice this, that people ask me something that could be perceived as challenging or could be perceived as a problem, I call it an unexpected opportunity. Opportunity automatically puts it in a good way. Or anybody asks me a question, I said, that's a beautiful question. Thank you for that. It was a beautiful question, because you brought me to think of something else. And this, so it literally boils down to this type of behavior. Then this way always reminds me to look at this as an opportunity, as something beautiful. So I imagine that this is what I do. And so one of the tips that I give, perhaps now we can walk into this, because you were asking me about goal setting. So practically, without just the inspiration of what a goal is, this is a better way of setting the goal. But so just before I give the tool, is if you take the gym, for example, that you mentioned, the question is, why are you going to the gym? Is it just because you're using the machines? No, it's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. And moreover, it's going to push you to your limits if you really want to get somewhere. And that means that there has to be a collateral. There has to be something in the future change that you believe that it is possible. You believe that it is possible you have a six-pack. You believe that it is possible that you run faster. You have to believe that you have a marathon to do that. You do want to ski with your kids. Whatever that thing is in the future, then you train that muscle over and again, and then you apply to that. Well, what you discover is actually that you can apply to the vision, but also to so many other things, right? But if you just focus on the gym itself, it's hard, and there's no reason to go forward. There's nothing to pull you forward. So even understanding that I set this, and therefore every time I get I come back to the gym and I make the choice to go there, and I have the resistance, I know why I want to go forward, and therefore I am driven by that. Okay, and that's sort of to Simon Sinek's words, sort of the infinite mindset. I'm going to that journey. That's what they say, trust the process and the journey. The question is, where are you going? And then the gym becomes a means to an end, just like a product for a startup becomes a means to an end. And most startups fail because I ask them, like, why do you do what you do? And what's the impact? What's the end user that uses this? What is the impact around them? I don't care what your product is. Nobody gives a crap about your product. They will once, to your point, and you said they care about it. Yeah. You touch something that I care about, and therefore I will find the reason for your product. Not just because you think it's good, because it becomes a means for an end for me as a user. It means to an end for you as an entrepreneur, because that's the impact you want to create. And even to sell it forward, and I'm jumping between things, but even to sell it, that's the collective imagination. If I imagine with investors, with stakeholders, with customers, with my company, that's the future that I want to create with you. What I have right now, that's the MVP. But that's just proof point that I'm on the path to creating that. So when you're investing in me for 5-7 years, I'm going to carry on that journey. I'm going there. You're welcome to join me, because that's what I'm I'm creating. This is the beginning, but that's what's going to go. And together we imagine this, and therefore I can pivot and iterate and change just like you do on stage. Why?
Yes.
Because I know why I'm doing this. Because you pivot and iterate on stage and you improvise because you know what experience you want to create for them. And therefore, if the mic doesn't work, then you'll laugh and joke and you'll sing something louder, or you'll scream, or you'll make an activity, right? There's so many opportunities to give them to reach that because you are driven by that and not defined by the outcome, which is another point. If you're constantly visualizing, you're constantly defining yourself by that specific outcome, means if I reach it, I'm good. If I'm not, I suck. And perhaps I don't need to do this anymore. I quit my day job and go back.
So what do you say about the big company visions then? How does that work with all this collective mindset and collective goal
I think they
direction?
I think the vision mission is outdated, especially in today's world. And you have to understand that the society is changing. This was always true, but especially today, and especially when people want to be, they want to be part of something, but they want to be individual at the same time. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be safe, and so on and so on. And you understand that if you want to go somewhere, I think we've heard today, I think Anton from Headway talk about this. He mentioned that if you want to go quick, go by yourself. You want to go far, go with the team. But in order to go with the team, you have to understand they're all individuals. So you have collectively imagine where you're going to go, and then everybody feels that they're walking. So they have to move their feet, so you don't drag them along. So everybody walks as a group. So when we both imagine where we're going together, then we both have a reason to go there. We know that we need each other to go there. We're both in this together, or everybody would call it. And then we have a reason to walk. I don't need to drag you. You need to drag me, but we can walk together, right?
Doesn't the defining the vision or mission, well, they are same, different, reflect on where we are going in a way?
Yes, but it misses one component. It misses which actually I think the mission does. So the mission, even if I'm going back to the army, a mission has, or even we can change the name of it. Simon Sinek calls it the commander's intent, and I did it as well. What is the commander's intent? I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know what's going to be out there. I don't know what the unknown, uncertain. But what I do know is the intent is to create that. That's the outcome that I want. This is the percentage that I want. This is the feeling that I want. This is the feeling of success that I want. This is the mission. And why? Because when I complete this mission, I will allow that group to do something that they weren't able to do. So the mission is not for the mission itself, right? It is part of a bigger picture. So it's part of an impact, right? So the mission is a means to an end, so I can allow the next stage to happen. And if I don't do that, they won't be able to do this, and so on and so on. So understand that you're part of something, part of that impact. So this is why I'm translating it back. The intent is to get to that impact, and that then our user will be able to do this, or that. That's the future that I'm creating. And therefore, you understand that what you're doing is a means to an end, and that means I can pivot, iterate, move, do all kinds of things because I know what I want to create. Same thing with going to the gym. So I know that even if it's going to be, this is what I want, but then I'll face a number of things in the gym. Perhaps I'll hurt my knee, perhaps I'll bang, perhaps it'll be hard, perhaps this. So then I'll start with this machine or that machine and move this one. That way you have that opportunity, so on, so on. I can have a number of opportunities because I believe that the future possibility of me being and achieving that is possible. And only when I believe that's possible can I then start to be confident and resilient in trying so many different things to get there. So what I wanted to give is this tool that I call this ABG, right? And this is what I train company, one of the tools. And I call this an always be giving mindset. Because I said, one thing we have to understand is that we don't know the future. We can't control others' choices, and we can only control ourselves. Okay, so when we understand that, but really, of course, you consciously understand, but when you really understand that, you say, okay, great. So every time I step on stage, or every time I go to the workshop, I start with something that at the beginning, they don't know why I'm saying this. Or every time I ask founders to go up, I said, before you go, you say this. And it goes something like this. Whatever event you have, you ask the first thing. You ask, what opportunity am I giving myself? Only myself. Nobody else in the world. It was just me. What opportunity will I, quote unquote, selfishly give to myself? All right. So I give myself the opportunity to do what I love, to do my passion, to listen to people, to do this, da, da, da. These are the opportunity I give myself as Yoad to Yoad. And then I say, from that, what opportunity can I give to you, Javid? Right? So I give you something, but I can only give you something once I have something of my own. Then I can offer it to you. I can offer you the opportunity then to listen, to trigger your thoughts, to do your own process, to take it, have it in your way, and so on and so on and so on. These are all the opportunities I give you. And that's where I stop.
Okay.
At that point, I don't I cannot control. It's not that I don't care if you like it or not. That means I'm throwing it again on you. But this is a way also to disengage from what others imagine about my, or how am I defined by you? Because I offer you the opportunity. Whether you choose it or not, both are perfectly good options. What it allows me to do with this mindset is say, okay, if they don't like imagination, think it's bullshit, that's perfect. And if they like imagination, that's perfect. Why? Because then I find my ICP, right? My ideal customer persona, which is the guy that chooses me, just like I choose, or the guy, the girl that chooses me. And then we can go and I can focus on them. And then I can find the ones who want to work with me. And then I start to shift my focus to that, right? So same thing, when they go up on stage, I say, you go to give yourself an opportunity to give others an opportunity to join your journey. And that's as far as you can decide. You can't control it. So if you don't, the ones who will choose you as you offer this, then that's the connection you will make. And then you will free yourself from constantly focusing on the negative, or the people who don't accept you, the people who don't like you, or as most entrepreneurs go, they go up there and it's like they're going up to the altar and doing this offering and asking, please accept me and tell me that I'm okay. And right. So we're going to detach from that. Okay. But it starts. So to the last point, your personal blocks in your own life and your inability to imagine another opportunity for you to be something else is the same thing that's stopping you professionally as well from imagining another opportunity. That's another thing. That's the same thing that will stop you from anything. If you can't imagine that something is a viable opportunity of the future, then you won't be able to reach it, because you can't even imagine that it exists. And therefore, when you talk about visualization, I can't see it, right? I can't visualize that thing. I can't materialize that thing.
Am I hearing you right that in order to really collectively succeed with our businesses, we first have to really find the content within ourselves and work on our inner world? Or
well, the reason that I go to our personal and then to the inner world is because to go to the big changes, to the big things, like it's daunting. It's too big, right? It's too much. So you start with something very, very small. And then I use the gym analogy. I call this IMAGYM, what I do, because it's to remind yourself two things. One, that it's an imagination gym, and it's a muscle, and training your imagination is just like training a muscle. So you start small, you compound the success, 5 kilos, 7 kilo, this until you get to the 100 kilo that you can bench. That's the one thing. And the second thing is like this acronym that of course nobody will remember, but I'll say it anyway. That said that it's imagination makes authentic growth your mindset. So when I say authentic growth, it means that any growth that you do comes from your authenticity. That's true growth, because it comes from your passion. So a lot of times when I train people, I go back to the question of, what are you proud of? What are you proud of when you do this, want that? And we're trying to look at the small things and to ask yourself what you're proud. And why do I ask pride? Because pride is a unique aspect that takes the details of the event. So very logical, right? I can list you, I'm proud of this because we did this KPI, I stood on stage, we love to get into details. So get that out of the way. And then there's also an emotional component, because otherwise you wouldn't have selected something that you're proud of, because it did something to you, right? And at that point, we start to work on, how do I detach the specific subjective experience and details that you're very comfortable to doing, but also understanding that there was an experience that you felt, an emotional experience that you did, which combined to the logic created that pride. And the more you do this, the more you collect data on what is your authentic self, because being proud of something means you usually did something that was more to who you is, or who you are is, and not who you were told to be, right? So it's sort of, it shows us, these are the things, and you start collecting data on that. And then you start to see what patterns there are there. And what I see when I coach, the more we do this and the more days we do this, we discover that the same patterns emerge of what makes me proud, what is experience. And why do I do this? Because once I collect all this, now I have something that I can use to predict that future. Just like you said, when I stand on stage, this is what I want to create, this thing. Okay, this feeling, this experience, this is the opportunity I want to give to you, right? So when I'm working through that, that's sort of working through that future. I want to create that. I'm working through that. And then I will be able to do things that will make that happen. Then I take the actions that will make that happen, right?
So what's the first action everyone can take today to make the change?
I would suggest, and this is what I give to all my coachees, exactly the exercise I just gave you. It's super simple to do. It's super hard to actually commit to doing, because it challenges you, and most of the time you never ask yourself. So I'll give one analogy, and then this And then the exercise itself, or the repeating it. The analogy is just like the classic, you're sitting in the plane and the oxygen masks drop, and they always tell you put your own mask on before you put the child's mask, right? Or anybody else's mask. Why? Because first of all, you have to give yourself the ability to breathe and survive. Only then you have strength to help someone else. It's not because you're selfish, it's because you actually want to give to others. So it turns that around, right? And the second thing is like, you ask yourself that we're continuously defined by the outcomes that we achieve, and then we decide if what we do is correct. So I give an example of, let's say you're a compassionate person, you're walking in the office, or let's say you care about people, and then you see someone down, and that, you know, colleague, a friend, and then you ask them, hey, what's up? You seem a little down. You want to talk about it? And they explode on you. Who are you? You pretentious. Your life is perfect. What do you answer? Whoa, you go, whoa, I'm sorry. All right, sorry. You go on to the second one, same thing. Third one, same thing. Fourth one, same thing. Fifth one, same thing. They explode on you. What the hell's happening with people today? Will you offer this opportunity to the sixth person?
Potentially not.
Potentially not, right? Because now you wanted to give yourself the opportunity to be compassionate, to ask people, to help people out. So you wouldn't go. If you're defined by the outcome, you will stop at 5 and say, screw this. I don't need this abuse. We're done here.
Yeah.
Right. I'm probably the opportunity I want to give myself is not the right one. I should change it. I should suppress it. But you may then miss the sixth person who may be just standing on the ledge, and he said, wow, you okay? So, thank you for asking me. This is amazing. Thank you. I needed someone just to say something to me so I can stop myself from doing some, harm to myself or whatever. So just a small example that if you are truly defined by the outcome, you will stop at 5. If you're not defined by the outcome or driven by giving this to someone, you will continue to the 6th and you will actually reach it. Same thing with startups that fail. So where I come from, we have a true fail fast culture, which means we also look at failure as a growth. Not just we're not denying that it's failure, but we also say, okay, but it could also be growth. This exists and that exists, right?
Yeah.
So when we focus on looking at it like that, use everything to move forward, because otherwise you can stop. Why continue? So going back to how do we then break this down, because this is theoretical. So breaking it down is exactly that. So when you go at night, I suggest this. You pick 3 events that happen during the day. Small events. I'm literally small. I talked to this one, I called that one, I had that meeting. I was looking at this person like this. And so just go as small as you can and ask yourself in this event, what opportunity did you give yourself? Let's say in this opportunity, I gave myself it's very hard to do because sometimes at the beginning, because you don't think about what opportunities you give yourself. But what am I giving? Like sitting in this podcast with you, what opportunity do I give myself? So I will list that. And then I said, from that, coming to you, what opportunity do I give you or give the people or anybody? What opportunity do I want to give from this? And then I say, this is the opportunity I want to give. But it only comes from what I first give myself and then what I want to give others. That's the A and that's the B. And the G asks you a very simple question. Were you defined by the outcome? Meaning if it succeeded or didn't succeed, specifically in this event, did it then make you question your own self or not sure, or did I suck or I'm not suck? Did it create some judgment on yourself? So I'm trying to call, it's a yes or no question. It's very simple. Don't bullshit yourself. It's a yes, no. And then the final thing comes to call bullshit on the last one, which means after you said, no, I'm not defined by this. I said, great. So will you give yourself the opportunity again? And if you answer yes, wonderful. That means you'll do it again. Great. But if you answer no, ask yourself, is it because you truly don't want to give this opportunity anymore? Like you don't want to ask another person how they're doing? Or are you really defined, but you're not comfortable with saying that I was defined by the outcome? So it helps you. And the more, it's not easy, but when you do it over and over again, you really you start to, first of all, lower your own resistance, lower your own self-judgment, and really sort of look at yourself in a way that this is a tool for growth. And then the second thing, when you do those 3 events, then we practice the second thing of intention and choice, which are very
Intention, I like this.
so then you say, okay, tomorrow I know I have 3 things in the morning. I make my coffee in the morning. I talk to this person in the morning. I'm going to have that meeting tomorrow. And then you list what opportunity do I want to give myself, just me. And from that, what opportunity do I want to give others? And that's where you stop, right? And the following day at night, you look back at those things that you wrote and ask yourself, where do you define by the outcome? If not, so it creates a circle that you keep on going. Like looking back and sort of looking at yourself, was I defined? Do I want to keep this opportunity? And the next thing goes like, did I really give this opportunity without being defined, or were I still defined? And a lot of times you'll find that you're defined. But the more you do this, and when I coach people, it takes about a week, 2 weeks. So then you suddenly understand that this becomes more of a mindset, of a choice to look at this thing. And then especially the planning of things. Sometimes we just flow into things, but even when we flow, we have some intention, we have some choice. We're proactive. We're not being dragged and forced into this. So once we understand that, of course, we logically understand that, but when we really understand it in our body, then in our emotions, then you fix yourself on, I chose this, I'm intention to make the best of it, and I will go out there to do this. And then this creates this loop. And I've been doing this for a long time. And I think it really changed the way that I see things. Now I'm able to detach myself truly more and more from to imagining what others are imagining about me. And this is what I'm telling people. It's not that I have a God-given gift for standing on stage or extroverted. No. It's because when I go up on stage or anything like that, I'm there to give an opportunity. Whether you like it or not is your choice. I am talking to those who do choose me as I do, and therefore it makes it easier for me. Because sometimes we focus on the negative, and then we miss out on these people who actually want to be in this contact with us, even in this context. And I think that helps us be our authentic self. This means your authentic self. You're giving what you want, and you're collaborating with people who make that stronger with you. And then you can continue to do that. But it all comes back to imagination, because if you cannot imagine and believe in the possibility of future change, of you being that way, of you giving yourself an opportunity to be like this as you want, then you won't take action from that. And you won't be able to have that vision not be defined by the existing limitations or blocks that you have at the moment. So this is how the first full circle, how it comes to it. And I think the more you practice it, the more there's not one way to do this. This is another thing. It's like, it's yours. You own it. The way Joad does it, the way you own it is completely different. I'm usually sitting there with coaches, and I'm inspired by them, because they literally take it and create something completely different that I could not have imagined myself. And this fascinates me. I see this and I go, great. So it makes me understand that giving people this opportunity, they'll do whatever they want. And that means ownership. And that means that it's their choice. And that means it's their intention to take this. And that means that they can inspire me back. And it doesn't threaten me in any way or means that I do it less good. There is no wrong answer here, which is the beautiful thing. And when you practice in a wrong answer environment, even when yourself, you get your own psychological safety with yourself. I feel safe within myself. That means confident. And then I'm able to give myself the opportunity to do again and express it to others, which means I become resilient. And this is what it means to do this.
Beautiful. I couldn't put it in better wording. So tell me, we're getting closer to the end. What's next for you? What is your big, I don't know, I wanted to ask what's your big vision for your imagination gym and your philanthropic, again, mission. So I don't know how even to now ask the question.
It's interesting. I thought about this. So I have that there are practical things that I want to do to work with I love working with big corporations. I love working with accelerators. I'm getting more into teaching universities now, this thing. So at the student level, so when they're primed to change, to shape their own thinking. So I want this to continue, and I'm looking to how I can scale it. But what leads me apart for these specific things, I think it's this. Okay, it seems unbusinessy to say this, but I see there's a lot of darkness in the world, right? And I feel it is because people can't imagine there could be another opportunity than the way the world is. And as the darker it becomes, and the more darkness spreads in that proverbial darkness, it becomes daunting again. It's like, who am I, the small one, to change anything in this great, horrible darkness that exists? But then, even coming where I come from, that there's the concept of you light one candle. And one candle is enough to drive out some of the darkness, or at least it creates non-darkness. And of course, it's not enough to light everything, but one candle inspires someone else to light another candle, another candle, another candle. So in this little holistic kumbaya sort of thing, more people, so I can inspire more people to use their imagination, imagine another opportunity, and then it creates a ripple effect, because people affect people. And especially if I develop ownership in you, means it's not because of Yoad that you do this, is because I triggered you, but David took it and you created your thing, then you spread it out. And that's exactly just on that point. Whenever I ask my coaches to summarize whatever we did today, and they always have to, then I ask them to write a lesson they would teach someone else. Not like teach back to me, teach your co-founder, teach your friend, teach your partner what you did today, as if you are the coach that's coaching them. And it's a small thing, but it creates is ownership, because I have to process it as if I'm going to teach it. So then it incorporates what you learned, not what I taught you, which is completely different, which is you learned. right? And what you made of it. And then you begin to be, it's of course, it's a learning tactic to create ownership. But what I really see that it does is it makes people go, this is what it means to me. And then they add their examples and they add other things that were not in the session altogether, but they add into it and they make it their own. So in that sense, more candles are lit and more candles are lit. So that's what I aspire to do. And yeah, and then to scale it to the way that I can, I look at the future, I look at Tony Robbins, for example, which whatever people think of him, the way that he is able to relay the message, to touch so many people is
he makes people for 4 hours just sing and shout and move and just like
absolutely. And it doesn't matter what you think of him. I took one of his sessions and I was standing there at 3 a.m. banging on a warrior session, standing in the middle of the kitchen doing this, and no one was around me. I was just looking at a recording.
And you were still doing that?
And I was still doing that.
Wow,
and I looked
that's
and was like,
powerful.
I'm like, damn. So and that's the thing that people understand. It doesn't matter what he does. It's what you make of it. It's what I make of it. That's the thing. And that was beautiful. So that's the aspiration to be on that scale, and it will. I'm living through that future. So I'm really practicing what I preach. It's not easy, but definitely worth it.
The change is never easy, right?
But I'm changing my relationship with change.
Okay, that's how it works. You're making it more, I think it depends how we look into the change. And I remember when I would go to the job interviews back in the days, I would get this question, what's your biggest mistake in life? Or I was like, pardon? You mean what's my biggest learning? Nobody loved it. I was like, don't know, it's just never learning. So yeah, it was quite interesting conversations I would have with HR people.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah, so okay,
Best answer.
Amazing. So we're getting now closer to the end. I have this tradition on the podcast that I invite every guest to leave listeners with a thought to ponder through the day. And I think if you like entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, curious people, just after this episode, that they could have a question to think about and reflect. We all could have, it's not only the audience, us as well after.
I have lots of questions, but I think one of them that was interesting is like, it comes with a before. One of the biggest enemies, we'll call it, of imagination is the saying, it is what it is. So ask yourself how many times really you're saying, or it is what it is, or accepting things as it is, but you're not really happy about that. And I would take those 1, 2, or 3 things and ask yourself, instead of saying it is what it is, can I imagine, if everything worked out, another opportunity for this to happen? And the more you start doing this, or what if I could do this, right? What if it wasn't, it is what it is? What if then, when you ask yourself that, what it usually, even if you don't see the instant thing, what it creates is one new thought in you that you hadn't considered before, one new future opportunity that you had not considered before, because you're stuck in this, it is what it is. So ask yourself, how many times am I saying it is what it is? And look at what that it is what it is and say, can I imagine another future opportunity for this? And stop there. That's it. Just ask yourself. And you'll notice that the more you ask that, you'll trigger these thoughts and things will happen. They didn't happen because you never thought about it. But now, I don't want to push you too far, but that's it. So.
Okay, I think that's a good start. So, Yoad, where can people follow your journey?
So I invite them to follow me on LinkedIn. There's also keynotes up that I did. Contact me, reach out, and yeah, we'll join the journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking us today through the world and the pathway of imagination during this busy conference. And yeah, guys, this was Yoad. I will put the links in the description of this episode. And yeah, have a great day.
Thank you for inviting me, of course, and you're a big inspiration. Even meeting you and hearing this, I said, of course, I'm going to talk here, because you have this way of creating a collective imagination, what we can create together, which is beautiful. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Amazing. That's what we had the sound.
Thank you for that.